What makes your career unconventional? And if the answer to this question is nothing, then this is not the video for you. But if you see that question on the screen and you are like, well, let me tell you, Taylor, it is unconventional because I have gone across different industries or because I have a portfolio career, because I have multiple interests, this video is for you. We are here for Beyond the Ladder, remixing metaphors for people with unconventional careers. And I'm teaching this because I have an unconventional career. I have not had a traditional 9 to 5 job since 2019, and my portfolio career bridges topics ranging from creativity to change management to career navigation. And the work that I get to share with you in this YouTube video first came out of personal interest and maybe obsession. I got really into the idea of how metaphors shape us. And I also happen to be taking a PhD course about building effective professional development. So I will tell you up front, I built this to be a live session. I'm still super confident that you're going to get so much out of this as an asynchronous session, but just giving you that heads up. And if you would like to follow along with the PDF workbook, I have a link I wanted to say in the show notes. I have a link in the whatever you call it on YouTube where you can sign up and get access to a bunch of free resources, including the digital workbook for today's session. Okay, so let's talk about what we're going to be exploring together. To start, we're going to talk about what a metaphor is and what a career metaphor is. Then I'm going to give you a chance to reconsider some of the popular career metaphors that we've been given. We'll next build our own career metaphors, and we'll end, if you know me, I am all about putting things into practice and taking action. So we will end with you making a commitment to how you're going to start to put your career metaphor to work. So hopefully that sounds good. If you haven't already signed up to get the participant guide, either do that now or grab a notebook because we are going to have lots of reflection and prompts in true Taylor fashion. But first, we're going to play a little game. So, what you're going to do is you are going to guess the lyric based on the emojis that you see on the screen. And I find it's much easier to just look at an example. So, here's an example. The answer to this one would be I love rock and roll. We've got an I, a heart, a rock and roll sign, and then we've got the toilet paper roll just to give it a little extra pizzazz. I will put this up on the screen. You can pause it for however long you would like, and then I will tell you the answer. Okay? We've got 3 of these to kick us off. Here's the first one. So hit pause if you want a little extra time, because I'm going to tell you the answer. The answer is Baby, You're a Firework. And it is so hard to just say that and not sing it. I will say I went back and forth on having the baby bottle or not. So sorry if that tripped you up a little bit. But the answer is Baby, You're a Firework. Are you ready for the next one? Our next 2 have hints at the bottom. So we've got that hint there. I'm going to stop talking. You hit pause if you want some extra time. Are you ready to know the answer? The answer is Life is a Highway. And my hint was trying to get you to think of the Cars movie where Rascal Flatts did the cover of Life is a Highway. Okay, this is our last one. I will say this is probably the hardest, but when I taught it live, someone did get it. So maybe you will get this one. And it's got a hint as well. So I'm going to keep us moving. But again, you can press pause if you really want to sit with this and figure it out. The answer is You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog, Crying All the Time. The hint was supposed to allude to Elvis, who some people call the king of rock. I'm not going to get into that whole conversation, but I was just trying to give folks a hint. Okay, so hopefully you had some fun. Maybe you got one of those. What does this have to do with metaphors? What even are metaphors? Let's get on the same page. I really like this definition of metaphor from Lakoff and Johnson. The essence of a metaphor, according to them, is understanding one kind of thing in terms of another. And I know if I just say that, it can sound very abstract, but you were just working with metaphors. So the song lyrics that we just guessed were thinking of one thing in terms of another. We talked about a person, baby, you're a firework. We compared life to a highway, called a person a hound dog. Those are all examples of metaphors. And Lakoff and Johnson, they wrote this book called Metaphors We Live By. One of their biggest arguments was that metaphors aren't just these descriptive flourishes that we add to make our writing stronger or make songs feel more resonant. Metaphors actually shape the way that we think and the way that we behave. And sometimes we don't even realize that it's happening. So, if we expand on this idea, then career metaphors are simply comparisons that we make to help us understand our career. And again, this can sound like I'm just saying a bunch of words, but you already know at least two career metaphors. So, one career metaphor is the career ladder. Another that you may have heard is the career path. These are terms. We think of climbing the career ladder. We think of asking someone what their career path has been. It can sound like just words, but what I find is so often we have internalized these metaphors in unexpected ways. So, if you're following along in the participant guide, I'll encourage you to take a moment here. It says breakout on the screen because, again, I built this as a live experience. What I want you to do is to think about how the career ladder and career path metaphors have influenced your beliefs and your behaviors. You can pause here and take as much time as you need with this prompt. I will say personally that when I sat with the career ladder and the career path, I spent a lot of time thinking that my career was wrong because I wasn't just doing the same thing and getting more employees and making more money in a singular area. And my path was winding. It wasn't this straight trajectory. I was doing something over here. I love a side quest. I like exploring. And so when I was internalizing these metaphors of career ladder and career path, I spent a lot of time thinking that my career was wrong and figuring out like I needed to fit myself into a box. And then many of my behaviors, especially at the beginning of my career, were trying to contort myself to fit into a path or trying to convince myself that I was excited to climb a career ladder. I shrunk myself because I thought that I was bad or wrong. And when we talked about this live in the class that I taught, a lot of people had similar experiences. So I'm curious to hear what comes up for you when you spend some time reflecting with this prompt. Feel free to add any of your thoughts in the chat, or you can send me an email too. I will read all of them. So we've defined what metaphors and career metaphors are. You've started to think about how career ladder and career path have affected the way that you think about your career. Now we're going to move into what I think is the fun part, is starting to build your own career metaphors. Even though I've talked about career ladder and career path as being limiting for many of us, the good news is that metaphors can actually be quite generative. We don't have to accept the metaphors that were given to us. We don't have to contort ourselves to fit into a career ladder or a career path. We can create our own. And there's a scholar named Schoen who talks about this idea of generative metaphors. When we create our own metaphors, often by making unexpected connections and comparisons, They help us create new possibilities. So in Schoen's work, he talks about the experience of a product team who decided to think about a paintbrush as a kind of pump. And when they started making that comparison, a paintbrush is a pump, it helped them redesign a paintbrush that wasn't performing super well. In the same way that this product team chose to play with the metaphor of a paintbrush as a pump, you can choose a metaphor for your career that allows you to reimagine what your career can look like. So let's start this process together. The career path and career ladder metaphors emphasize where we're supposed to go in our career. As we choose our career metaphors together, I want to challenge you to start by thinking about how you'd like to feel. Danielle Laporte talks about this idea of core desired feelings. And when we ground into our feelings, we build metaphors that are based on our desires rather than societal shoulds. And those desired feelings then inform our definition of success. So, we're going to take some time to reflect. And again, you can pause here and hang out as long as you would like. I have 2 prompts for you. First, write about how you want your career to feel. Maybe you want it to be impactful. Maybe impact isn't as important to you, but you care about this feeling of always learning. You want it to be unfolding like an adventure. Maybe your career is just a slice of the pie. You want it to feel like it's one part of a full life, and you have all of these other things going on. You have hobbies, you have relationships, and your career adds to that rather than taking away. And then the second prompt that I want you to sit with is my career is successful if. So, how are you defining success? And I want you to dig deeper, not just success is my business makes this much money, my title is this. What's underneath those pieces? Maybe you feel successful if you're able to go hiking every Sunday and go to your pottery class on Wednesday nights. Maybe you feel successful when you're learning and you feel like you're growing. Maybe success for you is about the fact that people care when you show up to a meeting. They listen to what it is that you have to contribute. All of those are valid definitions of success, and I hope this gives you a jumping off point. So press pause here for as long as you would like. And when you're ready, we'll keep moving forward. When I reflected on these prompts for myself, I realized that I wanted my career to feel like it was always unfolding. I can get kind of claustrophobic when I'm stuck in a place too long, whether that is literally in an elevator or figuratively in my career. So it was important for me to feel like I had space to evolve. Impact and continuous learning through experimentation are extremely important to me. I have had moments in my career where things were successful on paper, but I didn't feel like I was learning or I didn't feel like I was creating a positive impact. And so I felt like I was failing, even though on paper, other people might say I was successful. So when I started sitting with how I wanted to feel, and how I was defining success in my career, this metaphor of the whirl came up. And I have a whole other video on the whirl effect and how I've kind of built this world around this metaphor for myself. But to keep it focused on metaphors for now, whirls, whether we're talking about whirlpools or tornadoes, they build momentum through action. And though they can seem like they're just water or they're just air, under the right conditions, they become enormously powerful and they're drawing things towards them. They are truly forces of nature. And that's what I want to be in my career. I want to be a force of nature for good. I want to be someone who makes things happen, often in a surprising way, drawing the right collaborators and opportunities to me. So that's where I ended up with my career metaphor. Now it's your turn to work through a similar process. So the question I want you to think through is what parallels come to mind when you think about your desired career feeling, how you want to feel in your career, when you think about how you're defining success for yourself, what are the parallels that come to mind? And from there, you'll start to think of some definitions and you'll choose one that you're most excited to work with. If you're looking for some thought starters, it could be objects. So it could be that your career is a book. One of my friends, Cassia, talked about how she thinks of my career as a series of chapters. It's all in the same book, but I have these chapters, and these chapters can be on related topics, or some of them are feel like they're kind of out of left field, but when they're all in the context of the same book, it kind of makes sense. Maybe your career is a candle, lighting the way for others, generating warmth. Maybe it's a teapot. You might think of animals. I added some here. Maybe your career is like a chameleon or an octopus or a raven or a dolphin. Plants and fungi can provide a lot of inspiration. Maybe your career is like bamboo or a redwood tree or a mycelial network or like aloe. And I have some hints here for you. If you're feeling stuck, get up and look around your room. Like I'm looking around my room, I see a clock, I see some stationery, I see a piece of art, I see musical instruments on the other side of my room. I could keep going. But if I played with all of these, I might make some unexpected connections for what my career is like. And then when in doubt, nature is always an amazing teacher and is a great place to start for a metaphor. So hopefully that lays some groundwork for you. Pause here, reflect, take your time, and when you're ready, we'll move forward. What we're doing right now is first draft thinking. Your metaphor is going to continue to evolve. You will refine it. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but I think it's enough for you to work with. And that's where we're going to end today's video. As I mentioned before, I am all about momentum and action. And I especially believe for career metaphors, they're only helpful if you use them. So, for example, when I thought my career had to be a ladder, I spent so much energy trying to narrow down to being one thing, trying to get the right words, the right language, so I would make sense to everyone. And it was honestly exhausting. It was so exhausting. I like just talking about it feels bad in my body right now. But now, as I've been for probably a little over a year at this point, thinking of my career as a whirl and using that metaphor, I've committed to taking experimental action. I trust that I'm going to get information by doing things rather than just trying to think through it and find the magic words. What I want you to think about as we close out our time together is what is going to be a next step for you based on your career metaphor. So maybe it is you're going to reach out to someone and collaborate because you realize that your metaphor was that you wanted to be like a mycelial network. And that means that you do things in collaboration. Maybe you need to stop editing your website or your LinkedIn and you're going to try something. You're feeling really called to take action based on your metaphor rather than staying in this heady place. Maybe your career metaphor is telling you that, hey, my career is actually taking up too much space in my life right now. And in order for my career to be what I want it to be, I need to start investing in spaces outside of work. Something I recommend for everyone is looking for examples of people, whether you know them or you don't know them, who embody your career metaphor. I am so inspired by people who are multifaceted, multidisciplinary. Solange is a huge inspiration for me. I could list off so many people who I like to watch their careers, and I'm not doing the exact same thing as them, but they remind me that it's possible to be a producer and own an art gallery and be getting a PhD or whatever combination of things it might be. You might take it a step further and actually do an informational interview with someone. Get a better sense of what the day to day of their career looks like. How do they talk and think about their career? What's the metaphor that's driving their career decisions? It could be adjusting your work hours. Again, you might realize this is not working. I'm saying that I want my career to feel like it is a flower that's blooming. But the way that I'm treating my work life, I'm not giving the conditions for it to bloom because I don't have enough energy. So I need to shift my work hours so there's more space. I can keep going and going and going. I just know that when I'm in your shoes, I like to have some ideas of what a next step could be. So you can pause here, take as much time as you need to. And I want to say thank you for hanging out with me. If you have questions, feel free to leave them in the comments or shoot me an email or a DM. I love nerding out about concepts and then thinking about how people can make these concepts real in their lives. So nothing makes me happier than getting an email 3 months, 3 years later saying, "Hey, Taylor, I used this thing that we talked about or that I watched in a video, and here's the impact it had on me." I am hoping that your metaphor, whatever it is that you have started to work with today, gives you a lot of freedom and a lot of spaciousness to appreciate you and your career as it is, and to not feel like you need to become something else or chase someone else's definition of success. Your metaphor is going to take you exactly where you need to go, and I will be right here rooting for you. Okay, take care, everyone.